Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. He served in the George W. Bush administration and was a leading architect in the war in Iraq after 9/11. CBN's Kelly Wright covered the Bush White House for Fox News, and he joins us now from the White House. So, Kelly, his family's released a statement this morning. What do we know about his passing?
Gordon, that's right. Good morning to you. This is a sad and somber day for the Cheney family and for those who supported through the many years. Richard B. Cheney, better known as Vice President Dick Cheney, who died Monday night due to complications of pneumonia and cardiac vascular disease. His family said in a statement, for decades, Dick Cheney served our nation, including as White House Chief of Staff, Wyoming's Congressman, Secretary of Defense, and Vice President of the United States. The statement went on to state that Dick Cheney was a great and good man who taught his children and grandchildren to love our country and to live lives of courage, honor, love, kindness, and fly fishing, which was one of his favorite pastimes. And it went on to state that we are grateful beyond measure for all Dick Cheney did for our country, and we are blessed beyond measure to have loved and been loved by this noble giant of a man. Cheney knew the ins and outs of politics, Gordon, as we all know. And, of course, his family is missing him at this time. I should point out that he and his wife, Lynn, had been married for 61 years.
Well, he certainly was a Washington power player, both Nixon, Ford, Bush, and then as a member of Congress. And there was both, I guess, good and controversial parts of his life. What can you tell us about his legacy?
His legacy was one of protecting the freedom of America. A lot of that legacy came into being at age 34 when he served as the White House Chief of Staff to President Gerald Ford, then serving as a member of Congress representing his home state of Wyoming, and then serving as Defense Secretary for President George H.W. Bush, and then becoming the Vice President for President Bush's son, President George W. Bush. And then here's what's really important, Gordon. 9 months into their presidency, 9/11 took place. And at that point, the Bush and Cheney administration began to prosecute a war on terror globally, pointing out and retaliating against radical Islamic terrorists in that war on terror, those responsible for the 9/11 attacks. That launched a war in Afghanistan as well as the war in Iraq. The war in Iraq became highly controversial, as you know. Many people basically began to criticize the vice president who was behind the scenes, helping to manage and prosecute that war. And then there were other matters that came up that became so controversial. But to this day, the vice president remained committed to actually protecting America and its freedom against any form of tyranny, most notably against radical Islamic terrorism, which he believed was coming to the shores of America as it did on 9/11. And he never wanted to see that type of terror visited upon this nation ever again. I should point out that we have not heard a statement from the Trump administration yet about his passing. It's no secret that these two men, President Trump and Vice President Dick Cheney, were not friendly towards each other. There was a lot of antagonistic behavior between the two. In fact, during the presidential campaign where President Trump beat Kamala Harris, it should be noted that Vice President Dick Cheney was so upset with Donald Trump and believed that he was not espousing the conservative values that he was accustomed to, actually endorse Kamala Harris then.
Yeah, it was an amazing turn for a Republican vice president to endorse a Democrat candidate for president. Very unusual turn of circumstances. But in American politics today, we have a lot of unusual turns, and we'll be coming back to you in just a few minutes to talk about those. Well, this is day 35 of the government shutdown. Tomorrow will become the longest one in U.S. history. The shutdown is now affecting everything from food programs to airport efficiency and safety. Wendy Griffith has more.
As the stalemate continues on Capitol Hill, some lawmakers are discussing a bipartisan compromise. And Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he's hopeful a deal can be reached this week. Other lawmakers are less optimistic.
I don't know if the Democrats are ready. And I say this with respect. They won't get what they've asked for.
Mr. Art of the deal.
doesn't seem to understand that. He thinks he can bend reality. He thinks he can use hungry children as a bargaining chip against Democrats.
Monday, the Trump administration said it will use emergency funds to cover SNAP benefits after a judge's order to keep the nation's largest food aid program running. But the $4.5 billion in reserves is only enough to cover about half a month's worth of payouts, and it could take weeks or even months to distribute. Many families say they are out of money for food now.
It has been days where the kids will eat and I'll just survive off water.
Some states are now stepping in to fill the gap, including Maryland's governor announcing $62 million to help cover November SNAP benefits. There's also growing concern at airports across the country. 13,000 air traffic controllers and more than 60,000 TSA agents are not getting paid.
I was in the airport for 7 hours, so it was pretty bad.
The GOP-led Senate has held 13 votes to reopen the government. But Democrats are holding out for an extension of Obamacare subsidies. Republicans say they're willing to negotiate once the government is reopened. President Trump told 60 Minutes he thinks the Democrats will come around eventually.
Schumer is a basket case, and he has nothing to lose. He's become, I just left Japan, he's become a kamikaze pilot.
Sounds like it's not going to get solved, the shutdown.
It's going to get solved, yeah. Oh, it's going to get solved.
How?
We'll get it solved. Eventually, they're going to have to vote.
And with the Thanksgiving travel rush just weeks away, a big concern revolves around air safety. Experts warn that air traffic controllers are already stretched thin and are now working weeks without a paycheck. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
Well, let's go back to Kelly Wright at the White House. So, Kelly, forgive me for being cynical, but is the election that's happening today in New Jersey and Virginia the actual time clock for solving this problem? Are we going to see a deal tomorrow?
Gordon, look, I don't think you're being cynical at all, but we're all asking the same question. Senate Majority Leader John Thune believes that this will be resolved this week. He has not complied with what the president wants to do. The president wants to actually institute the nuclear option to remove the filibuster and get Congress to actually vote on getting the Republican congressional people to vote on getting the government back to running and operating. So it remains to be seen what the outcomes of these elections, if they'll have any impact on this shutdown whatsoever. But the president places the blame squarely on the Democrats for this shutdown. And as you know, the Democrats are placing the blame on Mr. Trump as well as congressional Republicans.
Well, is it having any impact politically on the president or on the Republican Party on a larger scale?
Yeah, it is. Their ratings have gone down. Their approval ratings. The president is now seeing some of his lowest approval ratings ever, including his first term in office as the 45th president of the United States, now as the 47th president of the United States. Some of his approval ratings has dropped as low as 37%. But he basically remains committed to saying that he will not negotiate with the Democrats, that this will get resolved by the Democrats voting to come in and start that CR to get the government operating again. The president is looking forward to having that accomplished, but he remains adamant that this is something that he believes the Democrats are as he said, losing their minds.
Well, let me be simplistic about both sides. On the Democrat side, they don't want to have a vote on reopening the government until there's some kind of deal on subsidies for Obamacare. And the Republicans are saying, well, let's deal with that later. Right now, let's just vote on the funding authorization and then get the government open. Am I correct? Is that too simplistic of you?
No, actually, I'm glad you stated it that way, because that's as simplistic as you can make it. Now, here's the question that comes from that simple statement, which is so true. The Democrats are saying they want to do something to effectuate change for Obamacare to protect American citizens from having to pay exorbitant health care prices. However, they're fast losing that argument, because that's out the window now. It's now into November. November 21st, this is all said and done. It's a moot point. And then what did the Democrats fight for? What the president and what Republicans have stated all along is come back to the table. We have a continuing resolution. Let's deal with this as things are, because Obamacare at that time was well funded, according to the Republicans. The Democrats took this time to break tradition and actually put the government into a shutdown. According to the Republicans, the Democrats are saying that they will stand their ground. But as you know, Gordon, politics being what they are, many Republicans have stated that Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, as well as Hakeem Jeffries, they're all fighting to appease the progressives. And out in the public, there are a lot of Democrats saying, yeah, keep fighting the good fight. But what is the fight going to do when so many people are hurting and in pain at this hour?
Well, at this point, is the American public blaming the president? Are they blaming Congress? Are they blaming Republicans, or are they blaming Democrats?
If you talk to most Americans today, they're blaming everybody. The president is aware of that. Republicans are aware of it. Democrats are aware of it. I used to always talk about how my mother used to say, we're the adults in the room. And at this point, many people are calling on the president to be that adult, to get all of these leaders back into the Oval Office, sit down and hash out a plan to get something together so that the American people are not being inflicted upon with any more pain and duress. Air traffic controllers, SNAP programs, food insecurity, people just getting their government paycheck, or instead getting a government paycheck with zero, and then military members who are still asked to defend this nation and the freedoms we value around the world, and still not being able to have security in knowing that they're going to be paid for their service.
Well, Kelly, thanks so much for the insight. It's an interesting time in politics. It seems like it's so polarized that people can't even get together to shake hands, let alone pass legislation. So you're going to have a very busy week. Thanks for the insight again. All right.
You're welcome, Gordon.
In Israel, Christian journalists gathered for a media summit against the backdrop of a tense ceasefire. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more.
Since the beginning of the October 7th war, Israel says one of the biggest battlefields is the information front. The 7th Christian Media Summit, hosted by the Israeli Government Press Office, is taking place for the first time since the October 7th war.
A summit where we hope you will understand the graveness of the events of the past 2 years, and also come to understand the beauty of the people and incredible resilience that they have shown.
Pastor Trey Graham from Texas has been to Israel many times, but tells CBN News for first-timers there are lots of surprises.
Coming here to see things on the ground, again, for the first time for some, to be reinforced for others, is the way to take back to whatever countries these journalists have come from to share what's really happening on the ground.
One important issue is biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, where Palestinians want to have a state. The group visited Samaria to meet Governor Yossi Dagan.
If people come here and visit, especially Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, they will understand the geography better, which helps you to understand military tactics and why giving up that high ground would be military suicide for this country.
First-time visitor Timothy Werasekera from Singapore said he better understands Israel's security needs.
One of the things that struck me being on the ground in Samaria is when you look across the armistice lines, you can see just how close the territories are. And to see that Tel Aviv is just an artillery shell away from where we were in Samaria made me think a lot about Israel's need to defend itself and the need to have a security buffer zone in that place.
Israeli Jonathan Feldstein, who lives in Judea, says it's been strangely quiet there during the war.
But we know that Hamas is there. We know that Hamas is crying. We know that our Arab neighbors don't love us, and all it will take is one little trigger for something else to start there.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, it reminds me of Golda Meir taking an American diplomat to Ben Gurion Airport just outside Tel Aviv, and then pointing to a hilltop overlooking that airport and saying, if you insist on restoring the borders to the Six-Day War, this was back in the 1970s, all someone has to do is stand on that hill and they can completely shut down this airport. They won't need sophisticated weapons to do it. They won't even need artillery or rockets. They can do it just with a rifle. So when you look at the geography and you start understanding the security situation that Israel has, you understand better, well, any kind of negotiations based on the 67 borders is way outside the window. The Arabs, the Palestinians, they had a chance in 1948 to establish a state along those borders. They had a chance continually until 1967 to do the same thing. They chose not to. Instead of forming a state, they said, Jordan, you take authority over this territory. And in that, there was no peace. They kept attacking. It was illegal to be Jewish and be in the old city of Jerusalem, the Jewish quarter. You couldn't have any Jews in the Jewish quarter of the old city. There was no access to the Western Wall. And it boggles my mind that you can now say, well, we've got to go back to those borders. Well, it just is nonsensical from an Israeli standpoint. And it means you're not paying attention to the history and you're not paying attention to the geography. If they wanted a state, if they wanted peace with Israel, they could have had it again and again and again. How many wars do they need to lose before the world wakes up? That ideology is absolutely embedded within the Palestinian people. They want to wipe Israel off the map, and they've gotten a lot of support out of Iran, out of Hezbollah, out of Hamas, all of these radicalized groups. If we stand with Israel and say this ideology is what it is, it's evil, you want genocide, you want to kill every Jew in Israel, let us stand on the side of Israel in this, and through that defeat not just the armies, not just the battles, but in the long run, can we defeat that ideology?